For this install, I chose to go with Berk high-flow cats. Check out berktechnology.com for more information. Here's a picture of a stock 350Z from underneath the vehicle. The muffler is on the left side, and the exhaust piping flows to the right into a Y-shaped pipe. After the pipe splits, we see two catalytic converters, or CATs, which then lead up to the headers on each side of the engine. For the rest of this video, I'm going to keep this picture in the upper left corner. The arrow indicates the front of the car, and the red target shows which bolt or area we are working in. We start by removing the catalytic converter support bracket. There are 2 nuts and 2 bolts on each side. Next, we are going to unplug the oxygen sensor harness. We can then remove the passenger side oxygen sensor using a special slit socket or a regular box wrench. At this point, we can loosen the Y-pipe to converter nuts. There will be one on each side. On this 2008 Z and other Nissan Infiniti cars with the high revving motor, we remove the engine cover and intake tubing to get to some of the header to cat bolts. Here we see the bolt on the passenger side. We use a long series of 1/2-inch extensions and universal joint to break the bolt loose and remove it. These bolts are on very tight, so you will want to use a long breaker bar at the end. We then remove the 2 additional cat to header bolts from below the car using whatever tools and extensions at work. If a bolt breaks, you should be okay since the Berk install kit includes new hardware. Once those last 2 are removed, we can take the catalytic converter out pretty easily. Now the first thing you'll notice is that the Berk Technology cats are much lighter than the stock units. They also have a wideband O2 sensor bung in case you want to do some serious tuning down the road. As I mentioned, the kit includes hardware and header to cat gaskets in addition to Y-pipe to cat bolts, but you'll need to buy the new Y-pipe gasket separately. Installing the new cat is a reversive removal, but we will show you each step along the way. The first thing you want to do is figure out which way to install the header gasket. It may look right at first, but the holes just miss each other, so we need to flip it around. Place the gasket on the stud to hold it in place while you slide the cat into position. Reuse the original nut on that stud. Then install the Y-pipe gasket along with the new hardware to keep things in place. We aren't tightening everything just yet. We will want to get the cat to header bolts on first. For the top one shown here and the third bolt, you will use the new hardware.
Alrighty.
Before we do a final tightening, we will move over to the passenger side. Again, we pull the wire from the clip on the transmission and unhook the O2 sensor plug. Then remove the driver's side O2 sensor. Note, you could also take out the O2 sensor after the converter is removed. Here's another shot of loosening the Y-pipe to cat bolts. Moving from the O2 sensor up, we see the hole and damage to the stock cat caused by a block of ice or speed bump. More importantly, we see two fasteners which we can reach from underneath the vehicle. There's a stud and nut on the top and a bolt on the bottom. In this case, we are about to remove this bottom one using a ratchet that just fits around the cross brace. Again, we use our breaker bar and ridiculous collection of extensions to get the last header to cat bolt. For all of the header to cat bolts, you may have to get a little creative. With all 5 fasteners off, we can remove the cat. Install the Berk technology unit after setting up the gasket. Then hand tighten the hardware to keep it in place. Again, we are using the original hardware on that one stud. The Berk high flow cats are quality pieces and give us a nice fit as we reconnect the new cat to the driver's side Y pipe. Now it's time to tighten everything down here on the passenger side. After that, we can reinstall the O2 sensor, but be careful and keep the wire from tangling or becoming twisted. Then reconnect the plug and tuck the wires back into the clip on the transmission. We repeat the same process on the passenger side. Now go over all bolts on both sides to make sure everything is tight. Then reinstall the bracket using the 2 stock bolts. Once those are tightened, we use the Berk technology hardware to attach the new cat to the original bracket. This is one of the main reasons I chose Berk parts for this install. Their catalytic converters use the original bracket and have a special O2 sensor bung to eliminate check engine lights. Once the bracket is tightened, we move on to reinstall the intake and engine cover. Just in case you aren't familiar with the intake, we'll show you how we reinstalled everything. We reconnect the upper hoses for each intake along with any smaller hoses. After tightening up the different hose clamps, you will want to reinstall the lower portion of the intake. You can see our intake installation episode for the rest of the details. Now to reinstall the top engine cover, remove the oil filler cap and slide the plastic panel underneath the strut tower bar. Reinstall the oil filler cap and then bolt everything down. The lower cover clips under the upper cover and then bolts on with a few screws. Now we are ready to fire everything up. Here's a clip from the very first startup with the new cats. Now before you do your install, there are a few extra tips. Spray PB Blaster or liquid wrench on all bolts about 30 minutes before you start. No matter what you do not use an impact wrench to remove any of the bolts. They may be hard to remove with hand tools, but the shock of an impact wrench has been known to damage O2 sensors. If you have a shop do the install, be sure to demand they don't use an impact wrench either. Also, if you own a 370Z, you have a slightly shorter wheelbase and you will need to disconnect the Y-pipe entirely to remove the original catalytic converters. Finally, there is a series of pedal presses you can do to manually reset the ECU or engine computer. This is recommended to help the car learn the new characteristics of the exhaust and to avoid check engine lights later on. You can find these steps online, but to make things easier for you, I will place a link to instructions on this episode's page at www.autohow.tv. And now I'll leave you with a second sound clip of an easy launch and a shift from first to second. Check our other video for more before and after sound clips, and thanks for watching.